Welcome to Shardcast, the Brandon Sanderson podcast. We have a different intro today because we have a very special episode with a very special guest. But before we get to him, let's see who is on the cast. Matt?
Hey, it's Matt, or Comatose on the forums and Discord.
And also Veronica.
Hello, I am Cheyenne Sedai on the Discord and forums.
I am Argent, and we have with us a Brandon.
Hey, I'm a Brandon.
How are you doing?
One of several. I'm doing all right.
User Mistborn on Reddit joins us.
Yes. User Mistborn on Reddit. Reddit, which is still in the process of burning down. I'm a very smoky, fire-covered U Mistborn here today.
Yeah. I guess we could have had Yule on TWG as your handle as well.
Yule from TWG. There we go.
A deep cut.
Always, on all video games and stuff, I usually just do Zellion. I've always liked that word. So now I'll never be able to get that in any game again because I have released that there will be a mysterious Zellion figure in the future of the cosmere. Anytime I use a name, suddenly everyone jumps on it. So I have to be like Mistborn 1 or Mistborn 5 or Mistborn 3000 nowadays.
Yeah, but you're always ahead of the schedule. So like you can come up with a cool name and then you can use that for several years and then release.
And then people get it. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Great. So halfway into the year of Sanderson and about halfway into Stormlight 5. How are you doing? How is your life going on?
Things are going well. Stormlight years are difficult years writing wise, right? There's a lot to do and a lot to get right. I mean, they're just enormous undertakings. I'm at 275,000 words. And I am almost through the second major group of characters, which when that's done, I'll feel that I'll be able to heave a small sigh of relief because there's 3 groupings, right? And so I'll have 2 of the 3 done. And then I need to write interludes and epigraphs, but we'll send the book in for editorial this time, probably before I do interludes. Interludes will just get stuck in as I write them while all the editorial's going on. So it's a huge undertaking. With Tor constantly looking over my shoulder, these days saying, we have to have the book earlier than normal because of delays with publishing all the trickle down stuff with the shipping delays and whatnot. So we got that in our Kickstarter. So how am I doing? I'm doing just fine. I'm not feeling underwater on it, but there is a lot of work to do still.
Okay, well that's good to hear. Mostly sounds like you got a grip on it. So why don't we roll straight into some spoiler questions? Spoiler policy for this episode, full cosmere spoilers. That includes Rhythm of War, Lost Meadow, Tress, Yumi, hell, let's say not even cosmere, if that ever comes up.
Okay, I can spoil anything.
If yes,
I can spoil unpublished books.
Well, I mean, we're okay with that.
Yeah.
So on Yolen. Matt, take us away.
Sure. So we'll start maybe with a Lost Metal question. In Lost Metal, you had Marasi ultimately reject Kelsier's offer of joining the Ghostbloods. And I think that's a decision we've seen some division on with the fans. So I'm curious, what's your analysis and thoughts on that? Because it was an interesting and fun character choice.
Yeah. I'm not surprised there's some division in fans. There was division among the beta readers on this. And there was even as I was writing the book, left myself the option to have her join if I wanted her to. I didn't lock myself in that part of the outline. My instinct was this isn't a good place for her. And so why? And then when I got to the end, I'm like, no, this isn't a good place for her. So, Marasi's journey through the books has been, how do I change the world? How much am I interested in changing the world? And how much do I change the world? Kind of in conversation with the dreams that she had as a younger person and the reality that she's now living. And one of the things I wanted to deal with in this book was this idea that she is kind of worried that she's becoming a cop, with all that entails, right? That there's a culture to that, and whatnot, and should she be doing more, and all of that. And so that did lead a lot toward the whole Ghostbloods thing, right? And I expected a lot of people to be like, oh yeah, well, here's the easy answer. The problem is Kelsier is just such a terrible match to Marasi, right? Like, personality-wise, Kelsier is about the shadows. He honestly believes that if all the information were known, that it would be worse for the world. He can share it in a small group. And he's got this sort of, I need to take care of people and I need to do it my way, sort of philosophy, which is really antithetical to somebody like Marasi, who, her whole thing is, we need to be better as a society, not as individuals, and we need to be. And so I at the end decided this is just a really bad place for her, right? But she needed a place. Actually, the first draft of the book, I didn't have her make the decision to go into politics. She had rejected politics in the first book, right? It's like, I'm not going that way. That's not for me. And I doubled back on that, and I'm like, no, this is probably the right route for her. Which is nice because it kind of snapped together for me at that point when I did the revision, to be like, no, she does need something. If she's going to turn down Kelsier, she needs something. You will have some fun in Era 3. Era 3, I don't know. Here, I warned you I might spoil unwritten books. Have I said this? I might have said this. You guys will know. Era 3's working title for the series is Ghostbloods, right? And so, Mistborn Ghostbloods is what Era 3 is going to be called, most likely. So if you were sad, well, just remember, if Marasi joined the Ghostbloods, we're still skipping decades. You would not have been able to see her as a member of the Ghostbloods, but that's what the name of the next series is going to be. So keep that on the down low, just with you and your mini listeners, because I'm sure Tor will want to do like an official announcement at some point. Yeah. So it's not an official announcement, guys. Yeah. It's a secret announcement.
Okay,
so it's subject to change.
Yeah. We'll used to be by now. Tor hates it. Like, they always are like, we got to do some big publicity thing. And I'm like, I'm answering a question and a fan thing. I'm just going to tell them. They hate it when I do that.
Well, that's one of the reasons we love you, Brandon.
It is the way publishing works. They always want to do the big announcement.
Yes, they do. It's even worse in Hollywood. They're also, I'm just like, just let me tell people. Just let me say, hey, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, no, we can't. I'm like, all right. But on my own stuff, I can just blah, blah, blah. So that's what you get from me.
Blah, blah, blah right away.
Blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I guess this kind of answers this question a bit, that you have more planned for the Ghostbloods in the future. But in follow-up to that, we were wondering, you also have Shallan kind of reject the Ghostbloods in Rhythm of War, which was published right before. So did that play into the decision at all? That were you trying to approach the same arc from a different angle, or was it more just
honestly, no, this was just the individual characters and what they need. In my head, Marasi walking away from an offer is very different from Shallan declaring war. And so, there will be lots of fun with that in upcoming books. Let's just say that.
Thanks. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's very exciting. Transitioning a bit to just Yumi Questions, since that's the most recent book. It was excellent. We know that we only know the people of Komashi as having investiture from virtuosity. why does their investiture seem to be split into like the two streams of power that like we know as the High On? Is it something unique to virtuosity as a shard, or is it just how it manifests on Komashi?
No, this will be a theme you will see wherever virtuosity is involved. So yeah. Interesting. Yes, this will be a theme when you're saying there is a sub theme to this in the cosmere. The push and pull, the opposites. That should be echoing through the magic systems. It's more expressed from virtuosity than others, but do keep in mind that the yin yang sort of thing is there in the cosmere as well, in the general magic system, but more pronounced with virtuosity, shall we say?
That's very interesting.
Oh, I knew you'd love that one, Argent.
Yeah. No, it really is, and it makes like sense as an artist, you know.
Okay, well, I'm gonna force myself to stick to the script and not think about push and pull in the shards, which we thought we kind of understood. So staying with Yumi, since we're asking the big questions here, I want to talk about the big machine, the father machine, right?
Yes.
There are some really interesting, what feels like intentional parallels between it and Nightblood.
Yes.
There is smoke involved. There's eating of souls. There's a whole bunch of things. So what I do want to ask is, one, was the father machine awakened using breaths, using Nauthian awakening?
Good question.
Or are you using awakening as like light weaving or bondsmithing, which is a overarching system in the cosmere?
It's the second. This wouldn't exist in kind of the pre-space age as much, but by space age, there's a certain terminology that is going between, basically it's starting with the Arcanus and kind of moving to the general population of what certain themes in the cosmere magics mean. And so when Hoyd says this is an awakened machine, his audience understands what that means. Does not necessarily mean breaths awaken, but breaths are one of the main ways that people see things be awakened. And so, yeah, you should be noticing those parallels, but it's a term that in the cosmere is becoming genericized to mean unliving object getting given some measure of sentience and even sapience by application of investiture commands and these sorts of things. I mean, by this point, they've all interacted with various awakened machines of sorts in the future cosmere. So they know what this means. They've talked to an awakened computer, right? So, yeah.
Interesting. Very interesting. That's what I was hoping you would answer, by the way. I was hoping that, because awakening is such a cool term for like awakening an object, right? One notable difference between the Father Machine and Nightblood, other than them using different magic systems to be awakened, is that the machine was somehow able to draw people's souls at a distance, which seems extremely broken to me.
Yeah, I had to this is going to be kind of a pretty special circumstance for this book. But yes, it is pretty broken. You wouldn't want this to be, this could be very dangerous in the wrong hands. Don't expect this to be very commonly used in the cosmere.
Was that a side effect of the magic system that was used to awaken the machine, or was there something else going on?
This is a kind of a side effect of what virtuosity did, and kind of the bit of virtuosity in all of the people, allowing the machine to have enough of a plausible connection to them to draw upon them.
Huh. Okay, interesting. I will think about this while I pass the ball back to Matt.
Yeah. This is me pushing just a little bit hard on what the boundaries of is possible. It is possible, but it's not a. But it is pushing further than I normally would on the bounds of what that could do.
I get that. Okay.
So kind of a similar question about the Midnight Essence.
Yes.
Now that we've seen that crop up in Tress as well as in Stormlight Archive.
Yeah.
And then, so is something similar happening with the Midnight Essence? And then if we have also the nightmares in Yumi, is that another that appear kind of similar? They're also mimicking things. So is that...
So there's a couple of things getting interwoven here. The actual idea of Midnight Essence is a kind of concept like light weaving that predates the shattering of Adenalcium, that various magic systems are basically borrowing, quote unquote, a law of the cosmere and creating a parallel effect from the same basis, if that makes any sense. Yumi is a little distinct from that, right? Like it's feeling similar. I would not call it true Midnight Essence. It's an awful lot more like a light weaving that has, because light weavings can have mass to them, because investiture can have mass to it, right? And so you're looking a little bit more like, imagine a bunch of Stormlight becoming tangible. You can touch it because of a powerful light weaving or something like that. And a little bit, of course, these things all bleed together because I'm using the same fundamental principles to make them. But for me, Midnight Essence has this personality kind of that comes prefixed. What the Midnight Mother is making, what the you're seeing in the Midnight Sea and things like this, you're going to get some similar personalities to these things, and not necessarily the same with the nightmares.
Gotcha. So it's more of a light weaving that's become autonomous and is kind of broken down a bit. The problem is it's also got the cognitive shadow, right? Like it's a really invested cognitive shadow that is borrowing this investiture to interact with the world, right? Because these are their shadows. These are their cognitive shadows, right? All of these people's cognitive shadows, but the power is not themselves. Remember, a cognitive shadow is a little bit like a fossil, like Vasher describes it, right? Like you've got this pattern there, and then the power kind of makes it manifest and be able to interact and things like that. And when that personality asserts itself with that power in the right place, you end up with a person that is the shadow running it. But at the same time, you've got this massive power and energy that the machine is kind of controlling, which pulls back and overrides the personality sometimes. So you've got a very weird set of circumstances going on here. But it was very fun to figure out all the backstory and the behind on it and get it all working. This one was a little complex to get these things all working behind the scenes. I like how they turned out. I really like kind of Yumi. If you dig into it, it has both pluses and minuses. The minuses is from the beta readers and the alpha readers, the ending for non-cosmere non-arcanist, shall we say, was really overwhelming, right? Which is why we have those Hoyd scenes where he's like, okay, let me explain. Right? It seems, I don't know, it seems pretty obvious. I would expect that this is like, all right, Brandon needs to do better explanations. Hoyd's just going to do it. But because of all the work I did behind the scenes on Yumi matches kind of cosmological magic system stuff in ways that a lot of the side projects that I do just don't. Yumi is kind of very deeply intertwined in following all of these processes in a way that works really well for me. But it also gets you into where you start to need a master's degree in the cosmere to figure it all out, which is why, to make it easier, we have Hoyd just kind of spell it out for people. It is a little clunky. I prefer the clunkiness to the previous version where you needed a master's degree in the cosmere to understand even what was going on. But, that's where we are.
Yeah.
Well, it seems to be working because a lot of people are reporting that this is straight up their favorite cosmere book.
Yeah.
And those who are not are still rating it very highly. So great job there.
Yeah, it's doing as well as I hoped it would. I knew I had something special in Yumi where I surprised everyone with the secret projects, and this is the one everyone was talking about. This is the one that Peter came back the next day and said, Brandon, I read that in one sitting. That hasn't happened to me in a long time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Veronica, move us over to the next question.
So stacking and other forms of art, like the TV dramas at the end, attract the spirits, but for some reason painting doesn't. Could you elaborate on why and the mechanical reasons behind that?
The painting would. The problem is that the way the painters are doing it is a little too by the numbers. Painter isn't the only one who's just kind of doing it by rote. They have, there's a little bit of, commodification of art commentary going on in this and things like that. I think the painting could draw the spirits. The painting does at the end. He draws Yumi, right? Which is working under the same mechanics. I think that part of it is proximity, right? The part of it is mechanical nature of it. It is kind of, in some ways, I think, kind of off the record, drawing the nightmares as well as painting the nightmares, right? Because people are doing this is part of why the nightmares are finding their way. And it's one of these things that happens so often in life, that the thing that you're doing in order to stop the thing from happening actually causes it to happen more, right? It's the American football thing, right? We put helmets on people to protect them, which makes them feel more comfortable hitting each other harder, which causes actually more injuries than than in sports where people are unpadded. And it's one of those kind of, and they're painting the nightmares to stop the nightmares, but that's also kind of drawing the nightmares. And so I do think you could draw the spirits with painting. I just think there's kind of a collection of things. Remember what it took from Yumi to actually legitimately draw spirits away from the machinery. It took, how many centuries of practice on her part. So, I think it's a combination of all those factors why the paintings aren't quite drawing the spirits. And, it did, right? The painter drew the spirits. Now, it's telling that he drew the spirits on the job that he wasn't required to do because his shift was over and he could have gone home, and he didn't. He went anyway. And that's the time the spirits noticed him. And so, but they've been watching him already anyway. I think in the chronology, if you actually go and break it down, they talk to Yumi before he actually even saves that child, and say, we've been watching somebody, we got somebody for you. But that was kind of the straw that turned the camel into a superhero. I don't know. There's a mixed metaphor for you.
Fantastic. Very interesting. It looks like all my questions this time are going to be about parallels between different things. This one between White Sand and Sand Mastery and some Aether stuff.
Okay, cool.
I noticed that there are parallels. The water requirement, there is a bond, especially the Omnibus really stresses that the Sand Master is forging a bond there. There is the legendary 13th Aether Spore, which may be white, maybe black. That's a little weird. What's going on here? What's going on? Has autonomy corrupted an Aether?
Raffo. Ooh, you are theorizing along the correct lines, Argent. Well done. Hey,
Matt.
Raffo.
Matt, save me from this man.
Yeah.
I like to Raffo, Argent. It makes it brings to my life. I don't know why.
Yeah. It's one of those things, Brandon, though, like the football helmets. I think it strengthens him as well.
It probably does. Man. Argent, you are one of the old, I don't want to call you old. You're not old, I'm old. But you're one of the first arcanist type people I remember, right? One of the first coming and asking me cosmological questions at signings and things like that. When was the first signing of mine you ever went to?
I think it was Steelheart. Yeah, it was not the Way of Kings, but it was soon after the Way of Kings.
So 2011.
11, 12, something like that, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Been a long journey, Brandon.
Yeah.
Let's keep it up.
Mm-hmm.
So Also talking about Aether, a lot of the Aether spores, or all of them that we've seen, map fairly neatly to a primal essence or element. And so we're wondering if that's a continued pattern. What's the essence for the Crimson Aether? Or to put it another way, what's with the red spikes? The world wants to know.
Spikes? So red spikes are the Aether version of coral, which is I did not, let's just say, want to do a flesh Aether. So let's just put you there. So we're going in a coral direction as our kind of organic-ish, fleshy sort of thing. Do understand they're not going to be a 1-to-1, right? We might have some wiggle room there, but so far I've done them as a 1-to-1.
That is kind of fun, though, if it is kind of mapping to flesh, that it's still got kind of a horror or like a scary element to it.
Imagine it more like carapace and things like that, as you know, what we might call our flesh for mapping the Aethers there. So I'm not going to go with some Aether that creates giant tumors. I did toy with it. It just, you know, certain things don't work as well as other things. So the Verdant Aether is Verdant and Rosite have been the two that have always been the most interesting to me. Though of course Zephyr is really important for the space age cosmere, right? Being able to have portable air and some propellant that breaks the laws of our universe by providing propellant that is small, very compact, and very easy to use as a propellant. Helps a bit with space age stuff. You know.
Cool. Veronica?
Speaking of like research and Aethers, what research about the Aethers is Xyzes hoarding?
Yes. Well, his biggest interest is how Aethers break down. And he's really researching the water cycle and trying to figure out how the seed happens, because he's very interested in the decomposition of Aethers, which is what's causing the seed and things like that. So that's what he is hoarding there. He's got quite the establishment in Silverlight as well.
Okay.
So, Silverlight was once upon a time a bunch of dragon palaces. They all still have their skyscrapers there, basically. So he's taking a little detour for some decades on Lumar, but his home base would be in Silverlight.
So it does seem, that kind of answers my follow-up question that was like, is his scholarly seclusion typical of dragons or just something unique to him?
In this case, he's taken a bit of seclusion, but I wouldn't say, so dragons, there's a whole bunch of different things about dragons, right? Like if you've got a Tamokek, you can contact them, you can pray to them, and they can actually influence your emotions, right? So they're all kind of like little mini gods, and they're not immortal, but they're pretty long-lived and kind of functionally immortal. They've been around for a while doing all kinds of stuff. So there's all kinds of things going on with them. Some of them will be secluded. Some of them take their duties very seriously, like Frost. Takes his duties very, very, very seriously. Other ones just don't care. You will get some themes with dragons. They do like bargains. They do like, they do tend to have their interests. They do tend to collect people, and have either followers or, corporations or things like that. I don't want to go too cyberpunk on us, but yeah. You'll notice some themes the more you get to know them.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I will warn you there. I'm probably, well, not probably. There are in the cosmere more Anne McCaffrey style dragons, lesser dragons, if you want, that do not have a human form. The greater dragons, as we call them, they basically are like amphibians. They have to spend a part of their life cycle in a humanoid form. And so they give birth in humanoid form, right? And then have a transformation in puberty to dragon form, and then can go back and forth after that. And so dragons are the greater dragons, but we've got some Anne McCaffrey style dragons. We even got some little drakelings on one planet that are, not six-limbed and stuff like that. So we'll eventually have some more dragons, but when I was writing the early books in the Cosmere, we were a little dragon flooded with Aragon and How to Train Your Dragon, so I didn't write the dragon stories. But maybe someday.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And also that means we got our Tamukek, which seems to be a theme with these interviews. We always have a Tamukek somewhere.
Well, one of the few ways to have an Ansible in the Cosmere in the early days pre-technology, if you want to communicate between planets, this is one of the only ways. So really, really handy to get a hold of one of those or to get some Sions before we get technological solutions. Those were kind of your two main ways to communicate across planets.
The so-called bone phone and cell phone, respectively.
Yes. Who came up with that? Bone phone and cell phone. Yeah.
I don't remember. Neither one is mine, but I've been popularizing them as much as I can because they are
in original
fantastic.
Dragonsteel. There is the point where Hoyd gets a hold of a Tamukek and calls Frost just to kind of prank him, because Frost thinks it's an actual devotee praying to him, and it turns out it's just Hoyd. He's found one.
No.
And he's That's from 2009 or 1999 Dragonsteel. So when Dragonsteel Prime comes out, you'll be able to read Hoyd pranking Frost with a Tamukek.
As he would, because he's Hoyd.
As he would. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. He was trying to prove that Frost was a dragon, and Frost was not letting on that he was. He was hanging out as an old dude, and turns out Hoyd got him. So anyway.
I want to read the next question as I have written it, because I don't want to mess anything up.
Okay.
So in the Lost Metal Ars Arcanum, or the Lost Metal Ars Arcanum calls hemalurgic decay a thing of the past. The term has been used to describe the loss of power in spikes outside of bodies, as well as the small amount of power that is lost at the moment a spike is created.
Yep.
Which one of those things no longer happens?
The first one. The decay of spikes outside of a body. They have figured out how to make that no longer a thing.
So it's not that it's still a thing that happens in the Cosmere. They just know how to avoid that completely.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That clears it up.
Mm-hmm.
Matt, what do you got for us?
Sure. We're kind of in the general portion, I think. So turning to Stormlight, originally Kaladin and Moash were essentially the kind of major Dark Eyes who were in a position to criticize the nobility and light-eyed culture. Mm-hmm. And now that Kaladin has kind of, if not emotionally, bought into the system to some extent by outranking most Light Eyes, and Moash has kind of gone full villain. Are we going to get another character playing that role of a dark-eyed or lower-class individual who is kind of critiquing the system?
Yeah, I've been kind of looking at that. One of the questions is whether Lift can justifiably fill that role as someone who considers herself a bit of an outsider, even among the Radiants, and things like that. But let's hang a little bit of a raffle on that. Ask me after you've read book 5.
Sounds good.
Okay. Staying on Roshar, kind of. We know Vasher has visited Roshar, and we know that the Vorin people soul cast important people's bodies into stone after they die, kind of like what happened with Gavilar. Was Vasher aware of this when he visited, and is that the inspiration for the Didenir statues?
He would be aware of that. I wasn't consciously making that connection, though, in the books. I'll be honest with you. This is just going back to kind of origins of what you can do with the magics and the cosmere and things like that. But I think he would definitely be aware that they did that. So you can have that be retro canon if you want, but it was not what I was thinking. But it seems like it's the sort of thing that would be very reasonable.
And then I want to ask you about my favorite character, Kelsier.
Yes.
Which is a controversial opinion, but I hold to it.
Okay.
In Secret History, when he steals that orb from the Eyrie, is that orb full of purified door? Is that the first time we see that?
That is the first time you see that, yes.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I love it.
Yeah. Yep.
I knew it.
That's why when I asked you about it and called it connection juice, you were like, what? That explains so much.
Yep.
Okay. So I think what we can do here is we can do one more round of meaty questions, and then we do a lightning round. And we'll probably be at time.
Yeah.
Well, not yet. We're still in the main course. Matt, what do you got for us?
So this is another Tress question. We were wondering if you made a conscious choice with Charlie to focus on some of the lighter parts of his story rather than exploring some of the more tragic elements of his past, just because, if you actually look at it, he hasn't had a great life.
He has not had a great life. Yeah. So there's a couple of reasons. Yes, I did. One is Charlie as a person is somebody who is it's not that he hasn't been touched by these things. He definitely has been. But the person he presents to the world is somebody who is actively deciding to move on as best they can. This is not always a decision, but for Charlie, that's like a part of his persona. That's how he handles the fact that his father replaced him so easily, sent him off to be killed, and things like this. This is his coping mechanism, is his kind of dramatic optimism. And because of that, it's letting Charlie control his narrative a little bit. Part of it is the kind of nature of the story that I was telling. It is not impossible in Hoyd's voice, as I do occasionally, both in Tress and Yumi, to get into the deeper character stuff. But I want to play those cards wisely, because the natural mocking nature of his narrative could undermine powerful moments if I'm not careful. So I play those cards carefully. It's those two things kind of mixing together that gets us the kind of lighthearted version of Charlie. That is really how he is, right? That's not Hoyd sugarcoating it, but that is how he processes what's happened to him. Let's just say he's super happy to, where he ended up. He wants nothing to do with going back to his old life. No. He's quite pleased with how things played out.
I feel like his dad has big Straff energy.
Yeah. You get big Straff energy, unfortunately, if you read basically any history of any noble line in the history of the world. I mean, it just makes you. There's this one point in Stormlight where Yasna's just baffled. She's like, "Didn't they love their families? Why is it always like this?" And that's me speaking. I'm like, I read about the, whether it's whatever dynasty, the Plantagenet or whatever. You're like, but this is your family. What's wrong with you people? And I think it's just a sorry, sad commentary on power and what happens and how it distorts people, that you end up with, unfortunately, the Straffs of being much more common than the Dalinars. Or the young Dalinars being much more common than the old Dalinars.
We all need a little bit more cultivation in our lives. Mm-hmm. Veronica?
Pivoting to the other secret project, to Yumi. Given what happens at the end of the book, is Yumi immortal now? And if not, does she still age?
So Yumi would be immortal. She could choose to age, and her perception will influence this. She is going to need a small bit of power to persist, but she is so highly invested that it would take a very long time for it to be noticeable. Particularly because she's just not even using that power, right? There's no really outlet for it, and so she is a cognitive shadow, much like the Heralds or Vasher, that is but more self-sustaining because of how highly she's invested. Imagine her as, someone like Vasher with thousands of breaths. It's just like, you're just never going to notice. But her perception of herself will cause her to age. Probably not to age to the point that she dies, though. Yes. Basically, the answer is yes. You've got an immortal being running a noodle shop in a backwater corner of the cosmere.
Which is sort of kind of how the book also started, except it was a different immortal being.
It was just a different immortal being. Yep. And you've got some hordlings hanging out. They're functionally immortal too, because they can just always be replacing their bodies with new bodies.
Masaka was so much fun. I do want to ask about Tress again, though. Yeah, but it's really, I say Tress, but it's really a cosmere question. It seems there's a special interaction between Silver and Investiture in at least certain places in the Cosmere, right? We've seen how Silver interacts with Aethers, and we've seen it over in Threnody, right? So that makes Silver the second really, really special metal to interact with Investiture. Is the plan now to have aluminum block Investiture and Silver destroy Investiture, or?
Yeah, that's the way I'm going with it. To make a distinction between them. That's where we're going.
Okay. But Silver is still non-allomantic. No silver eyes.
Still non-allomantic. Yep. Mm-hmm, okay. No silver eyes. This is my nod towards silver eye-ness. There you go.
So would that be effective against Spren, just like Silver?
Well, you'll have to find out. Raffo.
I tried. Yeah. Okay. Raffo. Let's do lightning round. So these are not necessarily yes or no, but like yes, no, one sentence kind of quick questions.
Okay.
But if you want to blab, you can always blab. This is your show.
Well, it's your show, but I'm happy to.
No. Matt, start us off.
Yeah. So first, point of clarification: can we confirm that Xysis is foil? And do all dragons have a nickname?
Yes, all dragons have a nickname. It's very common, and you are allowed to confirm that.
Okay. Perfect. Veronica, helpful for the wiki.
Yeah. No, and I've had this question since Rhythm of War. Will we ever learn anything about the anything canonical about the person Luthadel was named after?
Someday, maybe.
Okay. That's fair. Spores are said to eventually overwhelm a ship's silver defenses. Do Aether spores ruin silver like the shades over in Threnody do?
Yes.
Okay, so that's what the overwhelming is.
Yep, take a lot, but yeah. Basically, this is how we have a ship that sinks, not destroy the whole ocean.
Yeah.
Oh,
the silver doesn't just keep going. It gets burnt out.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Got it. Matt, your favorite question?
Oh yeah, this question. There was a long Shardcast where we debated this.
Oh dear. Okay.
Can we finally confirm what type of spren is used to create half shards? Is it radiant spren, shard plate spren, or something different? Because it's
Raffo. I I'm so happy that I can wrap on that one.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of...
You had a whole podcast about it.
Yeah, there was
legendary.
I'm not just raffling it because you had a podcast about it.
No. Well, part of the debate was whether it has been confirmed or not in the books. So this is, we're going to have lots of fun with this.
Theoretically should be confirmed in the RPG. We should be giving you all the tools that you need for these sorts of things, including all of the armor spread, all of the different brands of fused, and things like that. Just the stuff we need so that you can roleplay.
People who are making them.
Yeah. You should be able to get this should all get confirmed in that.
We'll look forward to that then.
Yeah.
Amazing. Veronica, give us something spicy.
Yeah. Can you tell us what is the command the father machine got in Yumi the Nightmare Painter?
Yes, I can.
What is it? Basically.
Rappo.
It's a weird command to give a machine. Was that?
You haven't gotten
that...
one yet, Cheyenne Sound. There's your Rappo.
Yeah.
That's what the sender bots.
It has to be very precise. I'm not going to look it up. It is in my notes. I would say it wrong if I gave it to you right now. It's one of those wrap-ups of Brandon doesn't want to look in his notes because we're in the lightning.
That's fair. Spores and Silver again. Can Silver help a spore eater with their condition?
Yeah, you can stab them through the heart with a silver knife so they die. much better ending. There is potentially an application of silver that could maybe help them. It would not be my first go-to. Silver can be pretty destructive.
Okay, that makes sense, I think. Yeah. Matt?
Why do rat skulls glow on Threnody?
Rappo.
Okay.
That's a pretty good reason, but that's a Rappo. We're gonna do a book on Threnody eventually.
I am so excited for that book. Anyway, could the Yoki-Hijo do other magical effects at some point other than like binding the spirits, basically?
Yes, they definitely could.
Cool. And I want to circle back to something you said earlier, but I would like to clarify that. If we are looking at very highly invested beings, right? We have Yumi, and we are told that she's more invested than Elantrians, more invested than Returned. Let's compare Yumi, Elantrians, and Heralds. Who is most invested? Who is least invested?
Of those, so probably Heralds. The thing is, the Heralds have varied. Like how in tune and aligned they are with their oaths, not their promise. It wasn't oaths, but they did promise certain things when they became heralds. It was pre the Knights Radiant. It's not as formalized as those. How in line with the power of honor? How in line with the kind of natural investiture of Roshar, which is separate from honor, cultivation, and odium? Are they? How can they draw upon that? I will call them the least of the three, though.
Herald's on the bottom, and then Yumi on top, and Elantrian's in the middle.
But Yumi's very close to an Elantrian. Okay, they're within the same conversation. And most of the Yoki-Hijo were traditionally in the past less. They've gained investiture over time.
Okay. So
lightning round, Evgeni. Lightning round.
No.
Lightning round.
That's okay. Lightning round unofficially over.
You're ending it so you can ask a follow up.
Yeah, actually, we're making good time. So
no. We are making good time. I do want to ask about a couple of things that are not like traditional Shardcasty 17 shard questions, right? First of all, spoiler streams, like your spoiler streams. Do you still plan to have like a mid-year, end-of-year one? And do you still plan to have a Yumi one?
We're definitely planning a Yumi one. When we can slot this in, we've been a little busy lately making sure we get enough intentionally blank, because Dan's been and I'm away, and we're going to Tampa Comic Con, and I've been doing writing retreats. Just getting because Stormlight is just busy working in the streams. So I still plan to have one. Whether it will be in July or not is a question mark. And, one thing we've been talking about also is this idea that we aren't thrilled with Reddit, right? And Reddit is our go-to place for these questions. And should we do something like, have a Discord where they're asked? You guys have such a great functional Discord. I don't want to do anything that like replaces that. Like that's the strongest Discord for people to go to just talk about the cosmere. Do we finally bite the bullet, start up a Patreon, which a lot of people do, and then have Patreon questions become the spoiler questions? The only reason I say that is because we would have to hire a new person to moderate a Discord or something like that. And so but these are all questions that are spiraling around in us. Like, it's not so much that Reddit is unfunctional. It's just that leaving it in the hands of someone like Reddit, I think the lesson from the last few months of Reddit is that we should not leave things in the hands of giant corporations like Reddit. It would be nice to have, who knew, right? Yeah. And so is there a way that we can, so these are all conversations we're having. The spoiler streams won't go away, but things like that. That's I would enjoy hearing from the fan base how they would like us to go about doing it.
Well, you talked about leaving things in the hands of giant corporations, and some of those giant corporations recently have been doing a lot of AI stuff and AI art. And I know that the timing doesn't work out because you wrote Yumi before that, but it came out at a very opportune time. Any commentary you would like to offer on the subject?
That's kind of a great place to bring this out. So I was obviously not I guess I presaged this conversation. A lot of us did, because there were different versions of chatbots and things like that. But I had no idea that Yumi would be coming out when one of the main conversations was AI art. And I have a lot of thoughts, and they are sometimes, in some ways, contradictory, right? Like, on one hand, I am a futurist, like most of us science fiction fantasy fans are, right? I'm not afraid of new technology. New technology will always be disruptive, and I find that interesting. At the same time, my old roommate, Ken, he got beat at Jeopardy by a computer. We still watch Jeopardy, right? Like, yes, computers can do it better. We don't care if a computer can answer Jeopardy questions. We want to watch people answer Jeopardy questions. I don't think the arts are in danger for that reason. I think that the corporate side of art, which is good jobs for a lot of artists, could be, and that is scary, right? Like the whole idea where we all know that the producers in Hollywood, if they didn't have to use writers, just wouldn't. If their quality went down 10%, but or 100%, they don't care. That's been our experience with Hollywood, is they don't really care about the quality of the writing very much. And so that's that makes me nervous. The market getting flooded even more so with making it hard to sort through things. I worry about the indie authors in particular, right? Like, I worry that we will have to have a return to something like publishers in order for people to be like, I trust this brand because they've sorted through and we know it's not random AI generated garbage. I worry about that just because I like the kind of golden age of indie publishing that seems to be dying, that Amazon is doing its best to kill after starting it up. I like that a lot of people were able to release new and interesting things, indie publishing, without having to use New York. I love New York editors, but the New York process doesn't fit for everyone. And we got some fantastic things not. So this is all, we're in a really exciting time, but also a time of upheaval and change. I think there is something that humans add to art that no algorithm can do. And I feel like I can recognize it even when I see something AI generated, I'm like, wow, that's fantastic for AI. Maybe I'm too optimistic. But I think that people are still going to want, people still buy physical records, right? People are still going to want books written by people much more than they're going to want books written by AI. And so I'm not scared of the future, but there are certain aspects of that future that worry me that I think we need to consider, so that the livelihoods of artists don't get destroyed in the interim.
Yeah, I hear that.
Mm-hmm. It's a fascinating conversation as an aspiring author, particularly outside the US.
Yeah.
And crazy how that happened with Yumi just coming out in the middle of that.
Yeah, it's one of those few times where I'm like right on the cutting edge of something. I mean, it's not just Yumi; it's the cozy fantasy movement, right?
Yeah.
Last year we had Legends and Lattes, and everyone's like, "Oh, we need more cozy fantasy." And suddenly, like, I released 2 of them, not knowing that this was going to be kind of the big movement in fantasy of these few years. So it's like, wow. Accidentally topical. That's very nice. I like that.
You and your fortune, Brandon.
I know. He can't keep getting away with it. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
We are, however, just about at time. So before we say goodbye, I want to give you an opportunity to either, if you have like an announcement or a message or a tease that you would like to share with anyone, you absolutely can.
Boy, I am fully in Stormlight mode. There's not a lot to tease. We will be doing the Words of Radiance Kickstarter, but like you already know, we pushed that back again because I'm not going to do another Kickstarter when, people are still waiting for their frugal. I think they've all shipped out, but some people still won't even have received those. I'm not going to start up a Kickstarter. Then just seems like a little tone deaf, So we'll be doing that in March. And so we're coming up with all sorts of fun things for that. You will be able to get Horneater there. You will be able to get a new Sanderson Curiosity. We'll be doing Dragonsteel Prime as part of that. You guys, did you not know that? I thought I talked about that.
We knew that.
Yeah, we did.
Don't look at Matt. We knew that.
You knew that. Matt was giving me like this is exciting.
Yeah.
He's giving me good feedback, visual feedback to keep me talking.
I'm not always the most in the loop. So,
so I mean, that's the only tease I have. I'll just say goodbye. Thank you guys.
No, we have an outro. Sorry. Evgeni,
well,
do the outro.
I want to say goodbye before you have your outro.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll shut up.
Yeah, you got to leave that part in. I want to say goodbye. You guys are good sports. Thank you for having such a strong and solid fan community and the wiki. The Coppermind is a little easier to get to than my own wiki. So oftentimes where I just go to the Coppermind instead of my wiki.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, for easy answers. It's like, how do I spell this person's name? Oh, the Coppermind will have it. So you can know that I'm using the Coppermind as reference. So thank you, 17 Shard. And I know you're all kind of loosely affiliated. There's the Shardcast and the 17th Shard and the Coppermind, but I'm glad that the Discord exists. And good job, guys.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for the kind words. And thanks for coming on the show. It's been a blast having you, even if I got ruffled a few times.
Sorry it took me so long. I know you've been trying for like a year to get me on.
Wow, you are a very, very busy man. I'm hoping we can do this again, before too long. We'll have our people speak with your people.
Okay, good.
But we listeners and viewers have a cool website, 17shard.com. You can visit that. We have forums, we have news, we have a Patreon you can visit. Patreon's only $1. There's a lot of cool stuff in there. We have a Discord server, discord.com/17shard or discord.gg/ You'll find it in the description. We have all the links in the description. Obviously, we have YouTube because you're probably on YouTube. If you're not, you're on Spotify or some other musical platform. All the links are in all the places. Follow us, like us, enjoy the content, and we'll see you in the next whatever it is that we do. Bye-bye.
Bye.